All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's executive risk briefing. If you're managing global supply chains, energy portfolios, or frankly, any kind of international geopolitical risk, you're going to want to lean in for this explainer. Right now, we're tracking a massive, sudden strategic pivot in the Middle East. We're talking an abrupt shift from high-intensity naval operations to a highly secretive, leaked diplomatic memo regarding the US and Iran. We're cutting through the noise today to give you the rapid, objective analysis you need. Because understanding the mechanics of this standoff, yeah, it's absolutely essential. 50 hours. That is exactly how long Project Freedom, which was the United States' most ambitious recent naval mission, actually lasted before President Trump abruptly pulled the plug. Now, why on earth would you halt a massive military operation just 50 hours in? Well, the administration froze it to create a super tight, high-pressure diplomatic window. It's a calculated gamble, right? Trading immediate naval force for a shot at a permanent resolution. So here's our roadmap for this briefing. We're looking at the 50-hour pause, breaking down the 14-point framework, checking the escalation on the ground, analyzing the presidential ultimatum, and finally, diving into the global economic fallout. Let's jump in. First up, the 14-point framework. Let's decode this deal. This framework, which was first reported by Axios, lays out an explicit quid pro quo. It's not a formal treaty yet, but it's the blueprint for everything happening right now. Look at the balance here. The core U.S. demand, total suspension of Iranian nuclear enrichment. In exchange, the U.S. concession is lifting those crippling economic sanctions that have just devastated Iranian oil revenue. And the global benefit, which is the absolute linchpin for global markets, is restoring free transit through the Strait of Hormuz. On paper, it's a straightforward transaction. Trade nuclear ambition for economic survival and free up global shipping. But, international diplomacy rarely stays neatly on paper, and this situation perfectly highlights the massive disconnect between Washington and Tehran. The White House perspective? They feel they're closing in on a historic peace deal, but Tehran's perspective is, frankly, icy. Ibrahim Rezai, he's the spokesperson for the Iranian Parliament's National Security Commission, publicly dismissed this whole proposal as just a wish list. He basically said the Americans aren't gaining anything in negotiations that they aren't already losing on the battlefield. So we've got both sides reading the exact same one-page document, but drawing completely different conclusions about their actual leverage. And that brings us right back to Project Freedom. Before this 50-hour pause, this U.S. naval mission was actively trying to guide stranded commercial ships out of the Gulf by force, literally trying to restore oil flow for a global economy that's just reeling from high fuel prices. But President Trump paused the mission to give Iran time to look over this 14-point deal without the immediate pressure of U.S. warships bearing down on them. Strategically, the U.S. administration is making a big, calculated bet. They're accepting the short-term pain of high gas prices for Americans, banking on the hope that this 50-hour window creates the breathing room needed for a permanent diplomatic fix.
Moving on to Section 2, escalation on the ground, the kinetic reality.
Because make no mistake, military action is absolutely not paused while these diplomatic talks are happening. Just look at the continuous friction here. Back in late February, the Strait of Hormuz was effectively blockaded. By April, we had a fragile ceasefire, but both sides were constantly accusing each other of violating it. Recently, Operation Epic Fury, the U.S.-Israeli offensive, got underway. And right now, even during this so-called diplomatic pause, we've seen an Israeli strike in Beirut, targeting a senior commander of Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed militia. So the diplomacy might be happening in a vacuum, but the military operations, they are full steam ahead. Which ties directly into a critical update. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just explicitly confirmed full coordination with the U.S. He emphasized that their shared primary objective is completely dismantling Iran's enrichment capabilities. So while the United States has temporarily paused its naval operations to let this 14-point framework circulate, its primary regional ally, Israel, is maintaining heavy kinetic pressure. They are definitely not stepping back. This two-pronged approach, a diplomatic olive branch from Washington paired with continuous military pressure from allies, it's a classic negotiation tactic. But man, it comes with an incredibly high risk of miscalculation. All right, Section 3, the presidential ultimatum and its binary outcome. At a recent campaign event in Georgia, President Trump presented a highly optimistic front. He told his supporters he believes the conflict will be over quickly and said most people understand he's right to deny Iran a nuclear weapon. He even went as far as projecting an early victory, just flat out saying, "I think we won." This kind of rhetoric is clearly designed to project confidence, signaling to domestic audiences that this 14-point framework is a winning strategy that'll quickly end the regional turmoil.
But you have to immediately juxtapose that optimism with a severe warning he posted on Truth Social. Trump warned that if Iran rejects the deal, the bombing starts at an unprecedented level of intensity. He actually noted that operations like Epic Fury would only end assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to. So we're looking at a stark, binary ultimatum here. Agree to the framework or face overwhelming force. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard is matching that hardline energy, hinting they'll only reopen the strait if all aggressors' threats end first. So publicly, neither side is giving an inch.
Which brings us to Section 4, Global Economic Fallout and the Macroeconomic Exposure.
To really assess your exposure here, you have to look at the Strait of Hormuz. Guys, this isn't just some regional waterway. It is the ultimate geopolitical choke point. Exactly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes right through this narrow corridor. Think about that. A staggering 1/5 of the global energy supply is essentially being held hostage by this standoff. When you have a blockade in this specific spot, it instantly translates into an energy crisis for the remaining 80% of the global economy. And the longer this 50-hour window stretches without a real resolution, the higher the baseline cost of global energy is going to climb. And these compounding economic pressures, they are mounting rapidly. The U.S. isn't just sitting around waiting. They're imposing their own counter-blockade on Iranian ports and actively disabling tankers that try to break it. Because of this, commercial shipping security in the entire region has completely vanished. It's gotten so bad that China's formally stepped in, demanding the strait be reopened ASAP. The data clearly shows that the maximum pressure tactics of the Trump doctrine are successfully crippling Iranian revenue. But the collateral damage? We're talking spiking global energy prices and supply chain paralysis that is creating a massive mounting political and economic risk worldwide. So this brings us to the core strategic question you need to evaluate for your own risk modeling. Is this 14-point memorandum a genuine workable path to peace? Or is this 50-hour pause simply a calculated ultimatum designed to check a diplomatic box right before justifying a massive, rapid military escalation? The clock on that 50-hour window is ticking down fast, and the answer to that question will literally dictate the immediate future of the global economy. Take a hard look at how your supply chains are positioned for either of those binary outcomes. Thanks for joining me for this briefing.